Today we're going to talk about avoiding burnout while leading at full capacity. And yes, I usually do this series at 10 a.m. Eastern, but today I had to give priority to something else, so we are starting a little bit later. This is part 1 of the Thriving Leader Formula series. You may have seen previous LinkedIn Lives, recent ones, where I focused on my other frameworks, and today we want to kick the session off, the series off, that is about the Thriving Leader Formula framework. Now, as I said before, it's about leading in a way that is both high impact and sustainable. What do I mean by sustainable? It is about performing at a high level without draining yourself or your team. So I want to share 3 quick wins today that can help you in this context. One is the energy audit. The second one is a delegation tweak that you might not have been doing yet. And the third one is a boundary practice. Let's start with the reality of burnout in high capacity leaders. Well, burnout doesn't come only from doing too much. It could be that you're doing too much, of course. That's why we're also going to talk about delegation. But it also comes from doing too much of the wrong things or without support. And common signs of burnout are decision fatigue, reduced creativity, irritability, emotional detachment, or also emotionally triggered. So you're emotionally triggered more easily. And so it could be both, right? Or any of the two, emotional detachment or too much emotional attachment to something. And we want to really talk about how we can make our leadership more sustainable and sustainably effective, and how this does not necessarily mean that you have to slow down or your team will be slowed down. It just means running smarter. Now, the quick win number 1 today that I want to share with you is your energy audit. The purpose of the energy audit is to identify where energy leaks and where to reinvest it. So what fuels you in terms of the work you do and what drains you? What gives me energy? What drains it? Examine 3 main areas for this to start with. People interactions, your activities. Like in your activities, which activities would be better done by another person? We all have our preferences when it comes to activities, right? Sometimes what's a pain to you could be a pleasure to others. For example, tech. I'm not keen on executing tech tasks. They sometimes frustrate me because I cannot make enough progress within a given time frame because I'm not the tech guru or the tech geek, right? And other people, on the other hand, may love it. So that is the energy audit referring to your activities. I mentioned earlier people interaction. So what interactions drain you and why? Once we know the why, sometimes we can actually then eliminate that drainage, that stress from those interactions. And then the third area is mindset habits. Mindset habits like perfectionism, like control, wanting to control everything, which actually limits us, and self-pressure. These are just a few examples. So observe yourself and determine what mindset habits you subconsciously practice without wanting to. The action item I'm suggesting here is to do a 7-day energy log. You could color code tasks. So green is energizing, red is draining, right? And just really observe what that is that drains you the most. And the goal really is to spend at least 80% of your time on green or neutral tasks and delegate the rest. Which brings us to the quick win number 2, delegation of tasks. So it's a little bit of a delegation tweak I wanted to share today. A strategy for delegating with growth in mind. Oftentimes we delegate because we have to, because we feel like we don't have enough time to do everything. But once we start delegating with growth in mind, delegation also becomes more sustainable and more useful for everybody and more enjoyable for everybody in the long run. So first of all, you got to know your team in order to delegate with growth in mind, because if you don't know your team, then of course it's hard to delegate to the right team members. Then you want to delegate projects, not just tasks. Ownership builds leaders and long-term capacity. It fuels growth. Clarify why you delegate, including the development of others, right? So is it development? Is it focus? Is it scalability? Is it to free up time for yourself? You can also be honest about that. And then choose who you want to delegate to based on growth potential and not just on availability. Provide context, not just instructions, what success looks like and why it matters. So this is really important, because when you delegate a project, you want to also share the bigger picture, the bigger vision. And hopefully you've done this along the way, but it doesn't always happen, right? Schedule touch points only and avoid micromanaging. Trust is a two-way street. As leaders, we want to be trusted by our team, but do we trust our team? That's really, really important to remember. And after completion, reflect together on lessons and then think about the next stretch assignment. Ask yourself, how can I delegate to develop leaders instead of followers that I have to pull along, right? The quick win number 3 is about boundary setting for leaders specifically. So protect strategic time, block 2 45-minute sessions weekly for vision, hiring pipeline, key relationships, and treat those as immovable. They are very important blocks of time in leadership. Also, have priority guardrails. Keep a visible top 3 for the week. New requests get yes, no, or not now. And if you say yes to something new, then also at the same time determine what needs to drop off for the time being. Maybe have a decision triage, right? That is really, really helpful in the long term. Only decide what only you can decide and route the rest to owners of delegated projects. It takes weight off of you and it helps you progress much faster with those projects. Because otherwise, if everybody needs to ask you, then you become the bottleneck. Meeting hygiene is another way of boundary setting, right? Eliminated unnecessary status meetings. Use written updates where more appropriate, or 15 minutes decision huddles. Whatever else may make more sense for every single situation. You could have office hours. You could set a window for ad hoc asks, and outside of that, requests go to project owners first and not directly to you. Okay, so you could also have scripts for clarity that you always have at the back of your mind. Like, for example, here's the priority for this week. If we add X, then Y needs to pause. Or this belongs to the project owner, and then loop them in and propose options. You can always say to a team, you know what, I'm happy to weigh in during office hours, and then ask them to add it to the queue, unless it's super urgent, where you, of course, always want to have open ears, right? Because after all, it's your business or your department, your team, and you want it to be functional. Okay, so let's summarize quickly, and then you can always rewatch the video for the details. So we have the audit energy, the delegation for growth, and the setting boundaries in this video today. What will you delegate this week for someone else's growth? How will you set boundaries for yourself? How can you audit your energy so that you don't feel depleted by the end of the day or the week or the month? And next week, I want to talk about leading through clarity and trust. Now, until next time, lead fully, live fully, and thrive as you lead. Until then.